Okay, so we're going to begin today's lesson, which is all about looking at negative numbers. Well, we're going to begin by talking about numbers in general, and maybe just talking about some of the words you might hear or that we use to describe numbers. So if we look at these values here, -2, 6, 9, -5, -13, -1, 0, 3, 1, 7. What do they all have in common? What do we call all of these numbers? We call them integers. So what are integers? Well, integers are all the whole positive numbers. So they're whole numbers. We're not talking about fractions or decimals here. We're talking solely about the whole numbers that are positive. And also all of the whole numbers that are negative. So again, no fractions, no decimals, nothing like that. And we're talking about 0 as well. Okay, so what do numbers tell us? Well, numbers tell us two things. The first thing they tell us is the direction that we're going to move. And we see that in our positive and negative signs at the front of our numbers. The second thing that they tell us is the size of the value. They tell us how many places we're going to move along our number line and whether it's in a positive direction or a negative direction. Now we call these numbers directed numbers. Now these are slightly different to our integers because integers are only whole numbers. Directed numbers can be fractions or decimals as well. Okay, so let's get into an example now. So which integer is larger out of each of the following pairs? And we're going to use a number line to help us. Now you may think, why do I need a number line? I can do this very easily off the top of my head. And you might not, and that's fine. But if you can, well done, I'm happy, I'm glad. But we're just going to do this as an example just to kind of remind us of how we do these kind of questions. I know we have done a little bit of this in Year 7 maths, but we will just make sure we're on top of it right now. So let's start by placing these two values on our number line. So we've got -5 here, and we've got +2 here. Now the bigger number is the one that is most to the right, okay, which means that 2 is our larger number here. Now we're going to do another one. Let's get a different colour pen. And we've got -4 and -7. So again, remembering that our largest number is the one to the right, it means that -4 is our bigger number. Now it's important we don't get confused with -7 being bigger because it's got, 7 is bigger than 4. Well, 7 is bigger than 4, but -7 is not bigger than -4. And that's why our direction is important, and that's why it's important sometimes for us to use number lines as well, until we kind of get our head around it a little bit more. Okay, let's use another example, or do another example now. But this time, instead of just stating which one is larger, we're going to use the greater than and less than symbols, which are the little arrow-like symbols over here. And we're going to use the number line again to help us. So let's start by plotting these two values. So -4 and 3. So -4 and 3, which one of these is greater? So looking at these, we know that 3 is bigger. But how do we show that? Well, these little arrows, I like to think of them as alligator mouths or crocodile mouths. The crocodile's always going to eat the bigger thing. They're going to go for the bigger, juicier thing. So we're going to go for the bigger number here. So our crocodile is going to eat our bigger number. Now, I want you to pause it and do the second one if you can, and then come back. Okay, so for our second one, it's a little bit more tricky because we've got decimals here, but that's okay. We can still work with that. We're going to do -5.6. So -5.6 is going to be between -5 and -6. So here's -5 and here's -6. It's a bit more than halfway between them. So we're going to put it just about there, a little bit there. And then we're going to do -8.1. Again, it's going to be above 8 but less than 9, and it's -8.1, so it's going to be just right there, right close down to 8. Now we can see here that negative 5.6 is greater. And remembering that our crocodile eats the bigger number, we put our sign here like this. Okay, so let's do another example. So we're going to write a directed number to represent each situation. Now, remember from previously talking that a directed number is when we're talking about a positive or negative number. It's telling us which direction of the number line we're going in. And obviously number, we need to have a number there with it. So the temperature is 15 degrees below zero. So if we have 0 degrees as kind of our reference point, our base point, if something is above 0, it's going to be in the positive direction of 15. So it's positive 15. Now a fish swims 4 meters below the surface. So we have our water, that's our 0. Oh, this could be interesting. I'm going to try and draw a little fish. Let's make it really clever and give it a few little air bubbles. So we've got our 0 meters, and our fish is 4 meters below, and so we write this as negative 4. And our last one, our bank account is overdrawn. Now this is something you've probably not heard before. Overdrawn means we've taken too much out of our account. So that means I had $0, but I still took $30 out. So that means I would owe my bank $30, and we would show this in our bank account as negative 30. So our three numbers here are positive 15. I might grab a different colour. Is our positive 50. Can't even draw straight lines. Positive 15. Our negative 4. And our negative 30 as well. So just to recap or look at some of the language you might see, particularly in some of the worded problems, when we're talking about negative and positive numbers. So we all know this symbol, the negative or subtraction sign, but the negative sign. So some of the language you might hear to do with negatives is negative, south, going down, essentially, below, which we saw with the fish example before, overdrawn when we're talking about money, decreased. That's some of the language. Now, sometimes you might hear a little bit or some different language as well, and you're just going to learn them as you practice as well. That's why practicing these questions are really important. Now, with positives, you'll hear positive, obviously. North, going up, above, deposit, or increase. That's some of the language you might hear. So, do lots of practice questions when it comes to worded questions, and you'll learn a lot of the language that's involved in that.